Hi, I'm Mary Liew. I'm the General Secretary of the Singapore Maritime Officers Union. I joined the SMOU in 1982. I was working in the finance department. I still recall back in those days, the GS, Thomas Day and Tony Au, AGS, interviewed me. And I got the job into the SMOU as into the finance department. But the thing is that they promised me that after the 3 months probation, they would give me a wage adjustment. So of course that wage adjustment never came. And the thing is that, why is that so? Thomas, as a GS, was away in Plymouth to do his diploma studies for 9 months. And back then, I worked under a very tough boss, a very difficult supervisor who is very temperamental. And I asked myself this question: should I stay on in SMOU? And the thing is that I saw a lot of infighting in SMOU as well. There are a lot of internal politics and there are a lot of issues among the staff as well. And I thought that it may be a good thing that I should stay on. Why? Because I saw the needs among my colleagues. I saw the needs among the seafaring officers in SMOU, our members. And I thought that what can I do to contribute to SMOU? If I were to leave, which is the easiest and the best things to do, and as such, I decided that I should stay on to do my best, and I believe that it is more blessed to give than to receive. So it was with that I stayed on in SMOU. I never dreamt that I could become a General Secretary of SMOU or even a nominated MP. But I think it is important that we start off with that passion within our hearts. What can we do to help others? So I saw the needs of our members and I reached out to them, the different one of them. Back in those days, SMOU was not where it is today. And it was very difficult time that they were going through. I remember in the 1980s, there was a recession. Many of our members lost their jobs. They came knocking on the doors of the SMOU. And many of them were without help. And we did what we can in SMOU to reach out to them. And that's where we started to train them, to come up with a course program. And there were a lot of things that we were doing back in those days.
I think it's incredible the journey you went through, and it was such uncharted territory. But one of the things we also realized that when you came into finance and you started to look at people and help them, but one of the void spaces which we never had was taking care of the women's movement. So how did you then manage with so much work? You then managed to go into other territory and really help the rest. How was that like, that journey?
Well, in SMOU itself, there wasn't that many women around, basically. But the thing is that for women in a very male-dominated organization, or in the industry, as a matter of fact, it was challenging for me. Because nobody really takes you seriously initially. And even when you talk to shipping company, when you negotiate with them, they were not looking at me, they were looking at somewhere else. And in fact, they felt that you were not there at all. So these were some of the challenges that I've got to go through and have to face. But I think over the time, as I work with them, and I think they know where I am, what I represent, and that respect came gradually. It is not an overnight thing. And to represent the different officers, you really need a heart of passion, a heart of compassion to reach out to them, to be really sincere and to share with them that you are for them. And I have a very, very supportive group of leaders around me. My mentor, Brother Thomas Day, Brother Robin Fu, our president, and the whole team of the executive committee. Although I'm the only woman in the exco, but they knew what I represented. They saw the commitment, and they decided that I should become the executive secretary of the SMOU. So I was appointed back then in 1999. And that was a wonderful journey for me. And as it goes along, last year I was elected as the General Secretary of SMOU. But never in my dream that, or even in SMOU's history, that there would be a nominated MP that comes from SMOU in the maritime sector.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, while we applaud SMOU and all the milestones she's had, one of the things a lot of seafarers are so proud of is having you there. It's not only having a voice in Parliament, but people start to see and say, oh, Mary Liew, an MP now, and she talks a lot for seafarers. How is that with your fellow NMPs and MPs? Is it easy to adjust to them? Because though you may have one thing in mind, but at the end of the day, it's not just for seafarers, but also for Singapore and for the women movement. How do you manage to balance that and family life at the same time?
Well, it is challenging, definitely. For one thing is that the colleagues and the EXCO in SMOU are very understanding. In fact, they are very encouraging. They supported me. If not, I would have never made it through the journey. And of course, my family. And the thing is that I actually represented the labour movement. So I speak a lot for the low-wage workers as well, and not only just for the seafarers, but the low-wage workers and the elderly and the women. So this is something that I have to balance with, and there's a real issues right there representing the workers, because even our seafarers, with the high cost of living among the Singaporeans, the low-wage workers, we do have an issue, and this is something that I've been constantly speaking about in the Parliament. And I'm glad that the ministry has actually listened very carefully and take some action and steps into making the lives of our low-wage workers better, including even our maritime seafarers.
Whilst many people can say that the union is now riding on the crest of a wave, but we know through the history of the union there's been a lot of trials and tribulations. Can you share one of the more painful, sad things that you went through to help others, and that actually made you a stronger person and made the union more recognized?
I recall that in the early 1990s, we actually organized an event for our members. It was back then in Peninsula Hotel. And I noticed that everybody were merry and they were really enjoying themselves. But there was one of these particular members who got a bit tipsy and he jumped himself inside into the pool and was making a fool out of himself. So we actually got him up, and I actually went to him and I discerned that he was going through something deeper than that. And as I talked to him, I realized that he was having some marital problems, some family issues and all that. And I started to talk to him, and I spent time counseling him at the point of time. And I felt that I could have perhaps done more, but time does not permit. It was late into the evening, and that was the very day. In fact, initially after a few days, he left sailing. And what saddened me most is that shortly after, I received news from the company that he actually committed suicide, and he never returned. And this was something that really, really hit me. And I asked myself, was there something more that I could have done for him? And how could I have reached out to him and made him see life very differently? And then I realized that life is so precious. Even every of our seafarers, our members who are out there sailing, for them to be able to make it back home is something that we look forward to see them. And that is where I shared with my colleagues that every event that we organize in SMOU, it is something very, very special for our members, for our seafarers. Because it may even be, we do not know, the last time that they would have joined us. So I think that really hits me very, very back, to my mind that, can we do more for our members? How much more can we help our members?
Thank you, Mary. Okay, now